Community through business, building relationships, and building Waterloo Region. 570 News presents Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Willkommen, Business to Business on 570 News. I'm Glenn Pelletier, and pleased to be joined by my good friends, Ian McLean, President and CEO, Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, Ian Durocher. Greg Durocher. I was just thrown off by saying Willkommen, I'm Business to Business. Greg Durocher, President, CEO, Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. The theme of the show is the various aspects of economic development in the region, and no better guest than our first one.
Yeah, well, we're joined right off the top by Dave McNeil, who's Executive Director of KW Oktoberfest. Later in the show, we'll be joined by Dr. John Tibbetts, who's the president of Conestoga College, and Roger Farwell, who's acting CEO of the Creative Enterprise Initiative, which are both very important economic drivers for the region as well. But we are on the threshold of our favorite time of year.
Oh, there's no question.
Oktoberfest is wonderbar. And so, Dave, why don't you just start by telling us...
Dave's the busiest guy in the region.
He really has to take his upper pills to keep going for 10 days.
Time does fly this time of year. You could buy a few more hours every day.
Exactly. Now, tell us, I know we had an event on Thursday. You had a big event to kick it off, which is amazing, and then we're right into Oktoberfest for basically a month.
Yeah,
tell us about it.
Stein and Dine kicked off Thursday at Waterloo Inn. We had Chef Corbin in from the Food Network. We have a Cicerone in from Molson's. It's a 4-course dinner paired with beers. We've got, different glasses, different selections for each course. Really successful, and it's really part of our culinary series that kicks off the festival. 33 days from today, we'll be at the Kitchener City Hall opening it up for 10 days of the festival.
That's just a tad depressing, I sitting in my office coming back from a week's vacation a week or so, 2 weeks ago, I guess, I get, emails already, saying, can you confirm your attendance to this Oktoberfest event? And I'm thinking, I don't want summer to be over yet.
Well, and you know what? For us at the office, Oktoberfest is year-round, but it really kicks in Labor Days. When the kids are going back to school, now everything is ramped up.
Yep.
The store, the tickets are flying off the shelf, and really people transition into that festival mode. And it's
Dave, during your organization, and I know it's 12 months, there's no question you can't put on an event like you put on without working 12 months. But there's got to be almost that day where all of a sudden, things go from a regular routine to absolutely ridiculous. And would you identify that as the Labor Day weekend, right after the Labor Day weekend?
Exactly. And the biggest thing for us is, we're a huge volunteer-driven organization, 450 volunteers, 40 committees. And a lot of dreamers and a lot of people that make things happen. And the biggest thing for us is getting those people to transition from the what if to now we got to do it. Let's put on our working clothes and execute. Exactly.
Yeah. Now we'll be asking both Roger and John about the importance of Oktoberfest. You've obviously done lots of studies on this because you rely on corporate sponsorship, but also the province, and because this is all of southwestern Ontario, and in fact across the province and the country and the U.S., people come to celebrate Oktoberfest. So give us an order of magnitude. What does this festival mean in dollars and cents to the community?
So in dollars and cents, we go anywhere from $21 to $28 million in economic benefit a year from the festival. So, our numbers are around 700,000 visitors a year. 10 days, the Thanksgiving Day long weekend. Our parade, our 18 fest hall and partners, and all of the various activities we have in town. There's a critical mass that come and stay and enjoy a multitude of things. We can't lose sight of the festival experience and the party. That's what drives the festival. But there's so much else that we've built around it.
We need the one stat about the volume of beer drank during that week. But
well, and that's the one that we like to keep. We like to keep our sponsors happy.
All I know is it goes down drastically when Greg doesn't attend.
Yeah, that's. No, but do speak. I mean, you've got the fest halls, and we all know we have from a business perspective, we're using this festival to show off this region's economic capacity. So we have, and something that Oktoberfest, along with CTT, the two chambers, help host, and the cities and the region, is Passport to Success. And that's an opportunity. So tell us about that. But that's an opportunity to showcase our region and what it can do.
And it's really an event where the partners you mentioned, along with Deloitte, BMO, and Miller Thomson, they really bring in people to showcase the community it's international. Actually, it's across Canada, the United States. We've had visitors in from China, Britain, Germany. They bring them all in and showcase the region. And of course, while they're here, we give them the Oktoberfest experience, and we bring business leaders in to talk to them. We actually this year with our partners, we've re-looked at the program and have really set it up more towards their experience and how they're going to do it. In the past years, we'd looked at it and they would sort of theme it that, this year it's green energy. So we're going to bring in companies and venture capitalists that are interested in green energy. Well, now they've got 3 streams. So they've got a high-tech stream, they've got a manufacturing base, and then they've got sort of a general stream. And they've got more specific items set up for them while they're in town so that everybody's not getting the same experience. They can customize it a bit more. There's time to go out and see what else the community has to offer. Some people like to go to the universities if they're bringing families to town and see what programs are for offer there.
I always like to say that we bring them in from around the world. We get them drunk and then get them to sign a commitment letter to invest in the community. But the reality of it is we don't have to do that. There's lots of reasons to invest in the region of Waterloo, but I think what this program certainly for the business community does is emphasizes the strength of the community, that we can pull together, the second largest Oktoberfest event next to
Munich,
Germany. And we can do it. We can make it happen for them, but we can make it happen for ourselves as well.
Dave, there's one question I've always wanted to know the answer to, because for years, the keepers of the keg, right? Those 2 older guys that tap the keg during opening ceremonies. They held that job for many, many years. There was a vacancy recently. How is that position? How are the people selected for that honorable position?
He's looking for a new job.
Keepers of the keg.
I'm trying to picture it now.
Well, you remember there was the one guy.
Yeah, Mel and Bill and Mel.
Okay, now one of them has left, or both?
Yeah, they both had they served with us. I believe it was until the 40th anniversary, and then it was just getting a bit too tedious. They put their time in, and like everything we do, it's a committee, and there's younger people coming up in the ranks, and they felt that at 40 years. They had done their time, and it was time to pass on the spigot.
We can't let Glenn. We can't let Glenn be a keeper because he'd literally keep the keg.
I could unbung it anyway, or I'll bung it up at the end. That way I can stay out of trouble. But who are the keepers this year?
Well, Art Primosh is one of our convention team's leaders, and he's certainly one of them. Tim Haddle. Tim Beckett is one of our new keg tappers.
Oh, wow.
And is part of the team. So,
that's great.
He's in Mississauga now, but he still comes back for the festival and is still part of that.
I have an opportunity because I sit on the board of directors for the American Chamber. Actually, they changed their name to the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. More of an international flavor now, but I have a lot of connection with chambers of commerce in the U.S., and there are a number of communities in the U.S. that have Oktoberfest events. Oddly, some of them in the spring. I don't know how they call it Oktoberfest, but they do. But most of them all claim to be the second largest Oktoberfest.
Well, and you know what? When we're doing our commercials and stuff, and Glenn would be aware of this, we've got to send off letters to Telecaster to prove that, we've got facts to substantiate that we are Canada's largest Bavarian festival. And you're right, there are a lot of Oktoberfests that happen throughout Canada, but a lot of them are one-day events, 2-day events. Nobody does a 10-day event.
No, exactly.
Nobody has the number of people pass through the festival.
I think you're selling yourself short, Dave. It's North America's largest, right?
Our tagline is Canada.
Yeah.
Canada's Bavarian.
But outside of Munich, this is
absolutely,
it.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, we talked a little bit about the importance of this to the community as far as an economic driver. Talk about your relationship with the business community. Obviously, part of the roots of Oktoberfest can go back to some of our chamber members who said we need to do something to sort of highlight the German background of our community and do something to drive tourism. Because it went back in those days, we were a sleepy little town of maybe...
Or maybe to validate a reason to drink beer
well,
for 10 days.
that too, but talk about your relationship with the business community, because this doesn't happen without, just like our chambers rely on corporate sponsors to support the work we do. Talk about what business community means to Oktoberfest.
And really, for Oktoberfest, there's 4 streams of income. It's people buying tickets. It's our grants from governments, both provincially, federally, regionally, and then it's from our sponsor dollars to business community. And you know what? It's I hate to say it's an easy sell, but Oktoberfest really is the community. And we were at an event in Toronto for Festivals Events Ontario, and Minister Chen, at the time, who was the Minister of Tourism, said, and I was quite proud, but he said, when you think of Kitchener-Waterloo, the next thing that comes out of your breath is Oktoberfest. Or when you think of Oktoberfest, the next words that come out of your mouth are Kitchener-Waterloo. So to have an event that is that closely tied with a community, not that it makes it simple, because it's not simple, but it's an easy sell. And I think all of our business and community leaders see the importance of the festival and being involved with the festival.
And I think, Dave, in all honesty, you as the commander-in-chief of Oktoberfest, you can't do this without business.
You can't. And you know what? I always go back to one of my mentors, Dennis Watson, and when he came to the town from Peterborough, he didn't get Oktoberfest at first, and he was wondering why we were invested in it so heavily. And it only took him a year or two to really snap into it and get what it is all about. And he always said, if we didn't have Oktoberfest, we would have community leaders sitting around a table trying to come up with an idea that we build. How do we build this, right?
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much for your time, and we know it's going to be a great festival this year.
And it is for business, it's for economic development, but it's also very family friendly. There's lots of family events, and so there's lots for everyone to do, and you're an important part of what makes us
and
a
for
success.
all those that complain about all the traffic issues during it, it's 10 days. It's bringing in tons of money into our community that lots of people benefit from. Organizations benefit from it, but businesses benefit as well. So,
and you know what? It's like a 10-day reunion. It's
Absolutely.
a chance to see family, friends that you haven't sometimes seen for a year.
Well, opening night at the Concordia is very much a homecoming
opening
for so
night,
many people.
But you know what, Glenn? It's funny because talking about the business and Chamberfest and on Thursday night at the Concordia, Thursday night is the new Friday.
It is.
It's Old Home
corporate,
Week.
Corporate night and Chamberfest is a great night to be there.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave, for kicking it off as we continue with the many facets of economic development in the region. Our guest was Dave McNeil, Executive Director of Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest. Coming back with more as Business to Business continues on 570 News.
Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. You're listening to Business, powered by Save on Energy, featuring local businesses, solutions, and success stories, connecting community through business on 570 News.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News. This segment of Business to Business is brought to you by Cowan Insurance, and we are joined by Conestoga College President John Tibbetts. And we would be remiss if we did not mention off the top, on the way into the show this morning, and John was very humble about the whole thing.
I know.
But he's a national tennis champion. So
I said that. I was just come back from holiday. My record is on the doorstep, and who's looking at me but Dr. John Tibbetts, the Canadian champion. Is it 70 and over?
No, 50.
50 and over. 50 and over. No, I'm sorry.
No, seriously, though. You're a national champion
at
an event that you have been competing in for a number of years. And this time you won it all. So congratulations, Mr. Tibbetts.
Thank you.
Now, on another national stage, Conestoga is, as we know here in the region of Waterloo, is renowned for being a leader in the community college and post-secondary education space. And that what we're talking about today, as we talked about yesterday, and when we agreed to come on, was on the many faces of economic development in the region of Waterloo. And many of us know that post-secondary educations, the universities, and in particular the community college, are hugely important economic drivers for the community. So give us an order of magnitude. How large is the community college? How many students? And what's the economic impact it has on the region?
Okay. Well, first of all, we define ourselves now as a polytechnical institute. We're not a university. We're not a college. We have close to 60,000 full and part-time students.
Wow.
Full-time employee base of about 1,000. Our graduates, 10% of more than 10% of the local adult population has graduated from Conestoga. If you went to the workforce, you'd find that almost 50% of the workforce has taken at least a course. So our involvement in the community is quite broad. We have over 1,000 employers, representatives sitting on our program advisory committee. So we're very integrated. And I think the difference is, if you look up the street at University of Waterloo and Laurier, they are very elite institutions. We are much more broad-based. We draw equally from the four socioeconomic quartiles, so we touch on everyone. We're involved in upgrading. We are either the largest, the second largest apprenticeship operation. We're big in corporate training, adult education. We have about 35,000. And so we're very well integrated. I mean, we help individuals at all different levels, and we work with companies.
So just and we always talk, and Greg and I on the show here always try and remind our listeners that we're very fortunate in this region to have five or six distinct sectors, of which healthcare and education is a huge component. It's about 20% of the local economy.
Right.
So give me the order of magnitude of Conestoga in terms of your budget and sort of and you must have done some economics studies on the impact of the college. Because that's what I want our listeners to understand is how important this is, and that your success is our success as a community.
Okay, well, so our annual budget is about $180 million. It would be larger if we got better funding.
That's a separate show.
If we got the same funding as the universities, it would be double at that. But we'll give you an example. The graduates from Conestoga that are in the workforce are earning more than $1 billion annually. So that's what we see as our contribution. But it's broader than just a number, because we also, in the upgrading area, we're saving people who would be, let's say, we help them save themselves, don't get me wrong, but we deal with thousands of people who are unemployed, or people that
lost their jobs,
or they have grade 10 and they need skilling up. So the impact is more than just pure numbers. It's also social. There's a social impact, and if you look at in healthcare, even counting doctors, about 60% of the local healthcare workers have graduated from Conestoga
through nursing or
nursing. PSW, personal support worker. Registered practical nurse, 2 years, respiratory, paramedic, the police,
the
paramedics, the
firefighters.
You're
training all of those EMS folks.
The EMS people, almost all of them are graduates. So we're very, we're everywhere in the community.
Now, talk a little bit, just touching on that. We did, when we had the downturn in the economy, there was a lot of dislocations, particularly over, 5 or 6 years in the manufacturing sector, where traditional manufacturing disappeared. Those jobs, you had a lot of those folks that were looking for retraining. You partnered with the provincial government and federal government, but the other levels of government with additional retraining dollars, and they specifically came to Conestoga and said, "You're in the best position to deliver this practical training to." As you say, upskill those that may in the knowledge economy, even if you're doing what we would have said is manual jobs, now require a lot of skill. So during that period of time, talk to me about how you were able to adapt quickly to the changing need of the workforce, and how you continue to help people keep their skills up.
Okay. Well, first of all, that was a very unusual period. We helped more than 2,500 people get retrained. And it started, basically, the government threw out this program, and basically they did it, the province, and I don't mean in a panic and I didn't know what they're doing. I don't mean that. Is that I think everyone was surprised at the scope of that downturn.
It needed to happen fast.
It had to happen quickly. So basically, what we had to do is sit down with local employers and come up with programming, not for necessarily 18-year-olds, but how do you get somebody who is 52? And back into the workforce. And it was interesting because it would surprise us, because some of those traditional manufacturing jobs, I mean, the people were very highly skilled, but to get into the modern economy, they needed higher literacy skills and numeracy skills. And I think it shocked
computers,
the government.
just basic.
Absolutely. So, so the programs were basically, in many cases, tailor-made, or there were existing programs where we knew there were huge job shortages. So we had, and it turned out that if you look at the numbers, we had the largest numbers of any college in Ontario. I think we're over 2,500. Now that program continues to this day, but obviously
it's scaled back,
much smaller.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I guess one of the things that speaks to is the sort of the innovation and entrepreneurial focus that Conestoga has, which befits our community, in that you were able to adapt to that very quickly. Like you change in a lot of ways. You know, starting a new program at a university takes years, and getting you went and said, "Here's the program we need to do," and we're able to, with your staff and your faculty and government, be able to do that virtually on a dime. You turned on a dime
within basically weeks. We could do that. Now we have an advantage because basically our curriculum is not owned by our employees. It's a joint venture between, obviously we have our faculty involved, but it's also the employers. Because people are coming to our place. The primary reason is to get a job. And they were able to get jobs. Our job placement rate now is in the 90s. That's 6 months after graduation, and we've been consistent in that. So that's what we have to be, and I think that's why we need a strong university sector. But even we have to continue to build the polytechnical applied learning side too.
So before, in the last few minutes we have, number of things that I think are just really amazing and great, innovations for the college. There's a school of food processing of which you have, I think it was Grand River Foods, made a huge donation to make that happen. You work very closely with the construction trades on whether it's bricklaying and other things. So talk a little bit about so some of the programs, but how you translate those programs to get support from the business community, because that's obviously very important that you have those sponsorship or donations that help you develop these programs, so you've got that next generation leading edge training available.
Okay, so the university does, I guess they do fundraising, and a lot of it's philanthropy. What we learned from our point of view, because we're much younger than the university system, when I go out, it's a value proposition. That's what it is. So I'll give you an example. The Ontario Masonry Contractors Association, the Canadian Masonry, there's a shortage. We approached them. Next thing you know, we built a masonry center. And the same with the roofing. It was the Ontario Industrial Roofing Contractors. We approached them, and there was a shortage, et cetera. And the same in the food processing. I had no idea when we first started dealing with them that that's one of the largest industries in Canada. It's the
largest one in this region.
Yeah. But if you start with Canada, it's $92 billion. I think in Ontario it's $30 billion.
Yeah.
We had no concept of that, but they actually approached us. We didn't often. We approach others. They approached us, and we were shocked. And then as we learned about it, we were able to engage the feds, the province. But
there was a large donation. They actually built some bricks and mortar and developed a curriculum. So for those from scratch.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting about that is, because I don't think a lot of people know, those are high tech jobs now. You have to have have skilled training and all of those things to be in the food processing industry, because it effectively has become advanced manufacturing or high skills.
Absolutely, and that's something that's important. I'm glad we're talking about this, because I think many of the parents out there, they don't understand that you go in there. The food safety side alone, it requires a significant amount of technology, but it's a very clean industry, and it's a sophisticated industry. And one of our big issues is that I think going to university for a lot of people is the right answer, but it's not the answer for everybody.
So, well, John, thank you so much for your time today. John Tibbetts, president of Conestoga College and national tennis champion.
That's important.
That's important. Thanks, John.
We're going to continue along with our theme, the many facets of economic development in Waterloo Region, as Business to Business continues on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business powered by Save on Energy. Call in with your questions at star 570 570 2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News. This segment of Business to Business is brought to you by Gallagher's Travel, and we are pleased to be joined by Roger Farwell. Among his many activities in Waterloo Region, he's known for so many different things. Joining us now in his capacity primarily as acting CEO of Creative Enterprise. Well, Roger, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, Roger is an old friend of the business community at large, both for Greg and I, but he's your past chair of the Greater KW Chamber, so we're very familiar with you. And in your real daytime job, I guess I'd say, you're a senior architect at Walter Fady. So we appreciate you taking the time today because we're talking about the many faces or many facets of economic development in the region of Waterloo. And I guess to start off, maybe just start more broadly with the importance of the creative sector and how creative enterprise came to be and through community consultation. So maybe give us a bit of that history of how it was formulated, and then we'll talk about what's next for creative enterprise.
Perfect, Ian. I guess you would well know that this whole agenda has been alive since 2003 when Prosperity Council was formed as a federation between the Chambers of Commerce here in Waterloo, Cambridge, Communitech, and CTT. And it worked through a number of strategic priorities that the community had around health, secondary education, and branding, and so on. But it certainly gave its last effort, starting in 2007, toward a look at creative endeavor. And I'm going to say that that's both traditionally defined arts and culture as well as fostering creativity and creative endeavor in the region. And there was a considerable bit of foresight there in that that consultation then moved into about 3.5 years of work on behalf of the community with about 120 people involved from all sectors of the community. So academia, public sector, private sector, health, and so on. Working, I think, on the threshold of understanding that there was a state of readiness that needed to be created in Waterloo Region that we had not approached yet, and that was all around the creative economy and fostering creativity, which we know now. It's great to be able to look back in 2014 and understand the Innovation District and a number of things that had happened at the Accelerator Center was very apropos. So that community consultation spawned both Barn Raisers Council and the Creative Enterprise Initiative, and the Creative Enterprise Initiative is its main activity is to foster that line of economic development. So
expand on that a little bit, because I think some people get confused. Is it just arts and culture, which it's not? But what does a cultural sector include? So healthcare and the knowledge economy and recruiting and retaining talent. So expand on that a little bit, because I think there's sometimes some confusion of what that creative sector actually includes. Yeah.
So the mainstream activity was to make Waterloo Region a place of choice to locate talent, to foster creativity and the knowledge economy. So by that I mean that in the first instance, our mandate was to do work in traditionally defined arts and culture. So we can think of that as the things we would run to very quickly in the art gallery, the symphony, the playing glass, Grand Philharmonic, and so on. But also in small to mid-sized organization where sort of culture related to the demographic that has an interest in being here and working in the startup ecosystem finds great work. So it was in traditionally defined arts and culture and organic cultural activity, as well as the intersection of art, science, and technology. So, and by that I mean on the for-profit side, it fosters content development and creative work around fostering and feeding the technology industry as we know it.
Roger, when you and I were sitting on the Prosperity Council, when the ideology first came forward of developing the Good to Great agenda, of course, through the dialogue with business leaders in the community and political leaders in the community, we really, came to embrace the fact that building a strong cultural values within our communities are really what's going to drive the economy from a retention perspective and an attraction perspective, not just businesses, but also talented individuals from around the world to come here and work, live, and of course, raise their families. So, with all of that, what you've talked about, the assembly of the organization and what you've done to connect all of the sectors together, what is the board or what is the organization working on going forward now?
So this is a very important point. If we were to look at the mandates that were delivered to the Creative Enterprise Initiative, both in terms of vision, structure, and resources, you would find in the Vision Task Force report that there was to be a strategic review every 3 years. And we're currently spot on that. We've have 3 years of experience, and the board has decided to take pause and reflect on what we've learned and where we need to go. And we're in the midst of that strategic planning, and there will be more about that certainly in the coming couple of months. But we are very much refocusing ourselves on the mandate, which has to do with, our first objective is to strengthen the traditionally defined arts and culture sector, as I said, but also to nourish other new creative initiatives that are outstanding and inspiring. So we're at the point of understanding that there is another platform of creativity unfolding here, which is highly artistic, around content creation and so on, which will fuel the previous 2 platforms around the development work and engineering that happened, and also the maker space and the kind of things you're seeing at Velocity Garage and things like that, as well as advanced manufacturing. A lot of this spawning out of Conestoga College and places like that. There is a huge cry for artistic talent now to drive and produce content for that industry. And it spans traditional industry and industrial floors that need as much innovation as we might think of Google and desire to learn. So it's right across the spectrum of our economic activity. This has to do with us inviting the world to look in on the activity that's happening here and the innovation and discovery that's happening in Waterloo Region. And there was a sense that, nothing was happening here. I mean, if you are talent that's being recruited from any part of the world, you've got to understand where you're moving to. And there was a sense that there was no cultural activity here. So this was to dispel that myth and to put a cultural engagement platform in place that allowed people to understand that there was things happening. And it also is meant to provide a community engagement platform to allow content creation on behalf of the cultural activity that is here, and to market and amplify, what is happening here, both in cultural activity and in the areas of innovation, to shout beyond our borders and allow it to be used as a recruiting tool. So it's a very important device, and it's one of the strategic reviews that we have ongoing right now. Now,
the Creative Enterprise, under your guidance and direction, has come, they've put out the call. They need to or would like to raise $1 million from investors for the organization. My understanding is you're at about $800,000, but there's still lots more work to do to find individuals, but maybe even businesses who are interested in investing in this program to inspire a more creative and talented community, but also workforce.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, our public sector partners have been at the table now for almost 4 years, and the value proposition that we're working on, writing again right now after our 3 years of experience, is meant to engage the private sector community in a significant way, because the work that we need to do on the ground serves each and all of their needs in terms of not only the kind of color and texture of the place so they can recruit and retain, but also to foster creativity. As I say, we're working on areas of digital content creation and unfolding applications for investment from senior levels of government to drive another whole platform of creativity in the region. So it's a significant economic development investment. For sure.
It speaks to your, when your organization speaks to this is a small contribution, that in fact, from an investment perspective into the creative sector or the creative growth of the region, we have about a $3 to $5 million annual shortfall. Is that in response? Is that, I hate to always go back and say it's government's responsibility to do that. Is that really, largely a private sector investment into that issue?
Well, I think we believe that it's a three-way partnership. That it's certainly the responsibility of local municipal government and the region. Mm-hmm. The private sector needs to be welded to that investment so that together we can make an overture to the province and the feds for increased investment in what we really think is cultural infrastructure. Because unless we build that infrastructure, we can't sort of deliver on the promise of being one of the communities along sort of with Guelph and only Toronto and Ottawa to hold the promise to drive another economy.
I think it's really important that people understand that this is not just simply around festivals and events, and this has really got a strong connection to the economic well-being of our region.
Absolutely, and we've done well. If you looked at the amount of investment that's gone into the sort of larger organizations, we're now advocating or will be advocating for a lot of work to be done in the small to mid-size areas, which is really what puts a lot of color on the streets and texture. So,
well, Roger, we appreciate you coming on today. We're looking forward to hearing from you on October 1st at the Chamber's Network Breakfast Series, so you can put more flesh on the bones and give a more detailed description of what's next for Creative Enterprise. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Stay in touch, Roger, too, because this is an important subject that we really need to. We think the broader community, but even the business community needs to understand is critically important to our economic future.
Well, thank you very much. I can tell you our board is united and very committed. We're very head down, and you'll hear more from us shortly.
Right. Thank you, Roger.
Take care.
It was Roger Farwell, our guest on Business to Business, acting CEO of Creative Enterprise, senior architect with Walter Fady. Coming back with more on Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy on 570 News.
Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. Support each other, they support the community. Now back to Business, powered by Save on Energy on 570 News.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy. And we welcome back Jeff Quint from Waterloo North Hydro.
Well, Jeff, we've talked the last couple of weeks about cooling in these warm summer months and how to save energy, whether you're a business or a homeowner. We've talked about lighting, and there's lots more to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk more next time about the lighting opportunities. But let's talk about just more generally for different sectors. Are there programs, specific to whether you're a manufacturer or a restaurant? What are the things that you can recommend, you and the Save on Energy folks can recommend for different sectors?
Well, it's a good question, and we get that a lot of the time, and our programs aren't really tailored to the sectors, but within each program or a specific program, such as the retrofit program, there are measures and there are incentives that are tailored towards each segment. And what we get is generally, I'm an office building. What can I do at an office building? Because they really think that they're limited with their opportunities for savings. They're like, well, got some lights. They have some lights, but they have heating and cooling opportunities. There's fans and motors that move the air through the building. Mm-hmm. And, different segments have different opportunities. If you're in a manufacturing sector, what are you making and how are you processing that product and how are you putting it together? Is there some compressed air in the facility? You still have lighting, you may still have the heating and cooling, but there's additional opportunities within those facilities. We get questions about farms and what opportunities exist at farms. Depending on the type of farm, they may have lighting opportunities. They may also have ventilation and some heating and cooling opportunities there as well. But it's all tailored to the sector, and there are lots of opportunities when you start digging in.
So, what are the themes in all these discussions? It's not just one thing. You'll come in to a farm or a manufacturing setting or a retail environment or an office facility. If someone calls in, you'll come out and do an assessment and look at all of those different things. And say, well, there's not much you can do here, but here are the 2 or 3 things that are that you may want to consider. And do you rank those so that there's low-hanging fruit, saying here's the most biggest bang for your buck as you start out? We've talked in the past about having a plan and how you may be able to, integrate these new opportunities. So, do you give them a plan, and what are the easiest things to get started with?
Yeah, we generally work with the customers and try and identify some low-hanging fruit opportunities, and that usually tends to be lighting. It's something they can see, and it's something that is usually a quick change with a decent payback. But we like to go through all the opportunities within there and point out all the different areas, because there's a lot of times where they think this particular piece of equipment it's untouchable and we can't do anything with it. It is what it is, but there's more opportunities than not. Is that we have to look at the end use and why are we using this, and then start working up the food chain and working up the process to see what is the best opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, and I think as we say every week is make sure you go to saveonenergy.ca and or call your local utility and ask for the conservation person and have them come out and check out your business or your home, because that's the best way to get started.
That's the best way to get started.
All right, guys. Looking ahead, what have you guys got coming up at your respective
Well,
shows?
we've got Business After Hours next Monday night at Habitat for Humanity, the Restore. But we also have a few spots left in our Fall Classic Scramble Golf Tournament that's appropriate for the level of golfer like Ian McLean. That's on September the 18th. But there's a really great joint one that I want to put the plug in for, and that's our Business Expo coming up in November, too. And there's some spots for booths. And that's November the 18th, and they can get a hold of the Greater KW Chamber or the Cambridge Chamber and register your booth, because it's always extremely well. Well, you go every year, Glenn.
Has that been almost a year already? Is
Yes,
that the
it
one
is.
where you guys were walking around with the video camera?
The video camera last
That
year.
was November?
Yeah, so that's coming up, and it's
coming up.
Last year we had almost 2,000 people through, and we had 175 booths. So they're going quick. People should get that big event that we're holding in September. I think it's the 16th, and it's on our website, is Inspiring Women. We do this with the Small Business Center. We have 5 amazing women talking about their story in business and in life. And we usually have somewhere between 500 and 600 professional business women at Binghamton's. So that's coming up. Tickets are still available, but they're going fast. But a great day to celebrate and do great networking. It's a full day of speakers and lunch, and great opportunity to connect with business women. So people should look for that on our website.
Yeah, and that's, the chambers are just getting back into gear after the summer. I can't believe it's gone so fast. And you know what was really nice, Glenn? I have to tell you, I hardly heard from Ian McLean all summer.
Well, it's because you never answered your phone.
Absolutely.
But the other thing that is coming up, and we did a show in the summer on municipal elections. I know Greg does interviews with on tape with people. We're having mayor's debates in Waterloo, Woolwich, Kitchener. We'll do a regional chairs debate as well as the regional councillors, because this is an important election.
You're going to be questioned out.
No. I think we'll be. We're going to get lots of good answers.
That about does it for today. What a great show. Thanks, guys. Ian McLean and Greg Durocher, your hosts on Business to Business. And thank you for listening. You've been listening to Business on 570 News.